Hello, everybody. Welcome to Carnage Candy. I'm Sean. This is Grayson.
Hello.
We just saw Speak No Evil, the remake of the 2022 Danish film starring James McAvoy and from the director of Eden Lake. And we have some thoughts on how it all went. So Speak No Evil is a movie about like assertion. It's about a young family who have a young daughter and they're in Europe on vacation. They meet a doctor and his wife and their son who cannot talk. The doctor invites this family out to their home deep in the Danish wilderness. And a lot of awkward situations happen in the original movie, Grace.
Due to them being way too nice at every single moment, and it drives you nuts, but the entire time you cannot stop watching it.
Exactly. There's like a scene in the original and in the remake where the family that's hosting tries to feed the vegetarian wife some meat.
Yep.
And she's so nice that she just eats it.
And says, hey, you know what? That was awesome. Thank you.
Yep, and things get escalated way more than that in both the original and in the remake. Through this video, we're going to talk about really mostly how the new movie is different and how it makes it better, but also worse at the same time.
It teeters a fine line the whole time, and that's something that I appreciate this movie for, is that it knows when to stay on track, and it knows when to be like, here's a little bump in the road here just to kind of keep you in it.
So we did do a spoiler cast for the original Speak No Evil, which you can watch right here, where we do a deep dive. We talk about the entire movie top to bottom for an hour. So if you don't want to watch the movie, but you want to know our thoughts on it, you can go watch that right now. But this is such a different movie while being the same, fundamentally until its third act, as the original. The original movie is such a movie about not speaking up or asserting yourself, playing the victim, and then at the end of the first movie, dying because you did not assert yourself.
Yeah, the entire time you want them to do something and they just can't because they're either A, too scared to stand up for themselves, or B, they're just too nice. So they just let it happen to them over and over and over again.
They're just victim to these weird social situations. Yep. But one thing that the remake does is the remake will have them go through an awkward situation, not confront James McAvoy and the hosting wife about the terrible thing that just happened. But then the movie will take an extra step that the original didn't and come to the defense of these hosts, right? For instance, whenever they find that their daughter is sleeping in the bed of the host's house, they get up and they get it in the car and they go to leave just like they did in the original.
And then whenever they're going down the road, just like in the original, the bunny's missing again, which in this version, the dad's a little more aggro towards the daughter than in the original. I feel like the mom and the dad kind of switch roles a little bit on how aggravated they were, because the mom seemed more aggravated than the original than the dad did.
Yeah, and with that bunny situation, so their daughter has Hoppy, who is her coping mechanism. The original, you understand that this is something that the daughter uses to cope. But this one spends a little bit more time in explaining that, like, the daughter will, if she doesn't have Hoppy, will begin to scratch herself and have severe...
Goes into almost a full-blown panic attack over Hoppy.
Exactly. So that's like one small example of how, like, the American version will take a little bit more time to make you sympathetic to why these people would make such bad decisions in not leaving the situation or leaving the house, right? And in the original, whenever you see that she's left Hoppy, you were like, you dumb idiot little girl, I hate you. And then the dad's like, let's go back. And you're like, Daddy, I hate you. Yep. Right? But in this one, in the Americanized version, it's like, she's going to have a panic attack.
We got to go back because it's happening. So.
Yeah.
There is a little more frustration with the kid in the situation with that, because she does start kind of throwing like a tantrum in the back seat, and she kicks the back seat of the dad, which almost causes them to get into a wreck. So you do have a little bit of that frustration, but then it kind of drives even more on how much that bunny means to her.
Because the anxiety attack put the family in danger of the car.
Exactly, correct.
So to kind of further that, whenever they get back to the house, and James McAvoy and they have, Patty and Ciara have now realized that their guests left without them knowing. Ciara goes to explain that they had a daughter that they lost.
Yes.
And that's why when she heard their daughter crying, she brought her into the bed without Patty knowing. And so you're, again, I would have left.
Yeah.
But it elicits sympathy in that Patty and Ciara are like troubled emotionally because of losing a daughter. So again, in the original, not so much as an exclamation to that degree.
Nope.
So you're like, in the original, you're like, would have left. They're stupid, but they're staying.
This is kind of where the first differences in the movies really starts to set in, because up until this point, it's almost shot for shot the same movie as the old one was.
Yes.
This is where the film starts to deviate a little bit to being like, oh, you're giving us more backstory with the two evil people in this one. We're going to learn a little bit more about you so that we can kind of see, I guess, where all of their wildness comes from.
I want to say, and this is a conversation we'll touch on, especially as we get to the end of this video, but I want to say that I don't know, because the original, it goes so far out of its way to elicit frustration out of the original couple. I feel like what they're doing is they're trying to soften the blow for American audiences.
For sure.
Right?
I mean, they're doing that the entire movie.
Exactly.
Much, yeah.
Having seen this and the original, do you like the backstory at this point in the movie where they're starting to get really uncomfortable and trying to leave?
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was a more tense film with them having backstory, or did you feel like it was more tense watching it frustrated for the Danish version?
I thought it was unnecessary, to be honest. I thought it kind of was trying to give him a little bit of a sympathetic side, which in my point of view, it's probably all BS anyway. It probably never happened in the first place, which I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah.
But even then, it was like, I guess that's fine to have. I kind of wish that they would have really dug into like what they did in the original and just kind of like guilted them a little bit in a different way than saying that they had a daughter beforehand.
Like, because in the original, they guilt them with the confrontation itself,
yes,
rather than like an empathetic story,
yes.
right?
I was wanting James McAvoy's character, Patty, to really kind of dig in to kind of like try to separate them a little more, to add the tension a little bit more between the husband and the wife by just coming up with like a new situation. But I understood where they were going with that. I just wish it would have been a little different, and they kind of would have wedged them just a little bit more to cause that friction between them a little bit more.
Yeah. So most of the scenes carry out as they did in the original.
Yes.
You have the infamous dancing scene where McAvoy gets agitated. And I think the best sub-story, to me, the best addition, even though it spoils a little bit too much too quick, is Ant's kind of mission here.
Yes.
Ant is the kid of Patty and Ciara, and he can't talk. And of course, in the original, he kind of just lays low and he's kind of hanging out in the background in the original. But in this new one, he's hanging out with Agnes, and Agnes is kind of being led down a rabbit hole by Ant as he explains that, like, hey, my dad has a strange collection of watches with etchings in different languages. Hey, my dad has a secret basement. And hey, my dad has taken pictures with tons of families. And Agnes, you're next. This is all kind of spilling into the third act. Did you like that new kind of take right there with Ant and Agnes?
I did a lot, because it kind of made the son a bigger character in this one. And the other thing that I really enjoyed them doing in this one was using how Ant can't speak English. So not only is his tongue gone and he can't really talk, he also can't write out to the daughter to tell her, hey, all of this is happening. So he has to come up with more unique ways to show him, like, hey, this isn't what's going on, but he has to think the entire movie, like, how do I get to that point?
Yeah, I love the scene where he shows all of the stolen watches.
Yes.
And he shows the engraving, and it probably says, for my loving son, so-and-so, right? Or something like that. But she can't read it because it's in another language.
It's in a different language.
So this very clever turn kind of happens where in the original movie, obviously our characters kind of just succumb to the fact that they're being taken advantage of, and then they're driven off into the into a middle of a quarry, and they're literally stoned to death by their hosts. And it's very morbid and bleak and really terrible, gruesome ending that would not have made anybody happy.
It would not have, they would have screened it to American audiences and it would have been like, nope, change that ending. Start over again.
As you know, in our spoiler cast, Grace and I talk about how frustrating the movie is.
Yep.
But then when you listen to us talk about, we're so passionate about it. It really elicited that frustration with the characters. And I feared that the American version would totally miss the point and bastardize this ending and ruin the entire point of the movie, which is to watch a frustrating situation that a couple won't understand. Kind of like a black comedy. And while this movie is very funny, Watkins, what he does is he takes, rather than it like ruining the point of the movie, it's more like how Quentin Tarantino rewrites like what happened to Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's delivered like a wish fulfillment, especially if you've seen both movies. What you get is Watkins is like, man, it would have been so much happier if this would have happened. And that's where the film kind of deviates in its third act. Grayson you made a great point in the car on the way home. There is a Danish couple.
Yes. So
Go ahead.
At the very beginning of the movie, there is a Danish couple that the American family is just so annoyed by the entire time. And that right there was my first hint that it's like, oh, they're completely separating this from the original family, and they're showing that this family will be able to do something different because they're not nice.
Yeah.
They're not the happy-go-lucky people that the Danish were. They're kind of assholes.
Yeah.
Like they make fun of this other couple, and in my head, I'm like, okay, I know where you're going with this now.
Yeah, the director and the writer are instantly just like, kind of telling the Danish couple from the original movie to go fuck themselves by mocking a pair of Danish strangers that just happen to be in the same vacation hotel with them. So
who are just ultimately just the sweetest couple, just wanting to talk to people, but they're like, no, get away from us. You're too nice.
I thought that was a very like fun jab. But this kind of, when you watch the original, you're like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you fight back? Why don't you speak up for yourselves? Why don't you do anything of remote intelligence to get out of the situation? And starting here, after Ant shows Agnes the basement, this change that the writer-director for American audiences, and maybe for themselves, right? It's not that they missed the point of the Danish movie, but it's more like, hey, we're gonna make a version is right for the people that are going to watch.
They're going to make a version that you're going to want to rewatch and not feel it's bad to rewatch.
Yes.
It's what they did.
Yes, this is a far more palatable movie than the original. But I don't know if that makes it better, but let's talk about this ending. So the daughter, she stabs herself with a flower needle.
Yep.
And very cleverly, to seclude her mom away from the couple at their lunch table, is like, hey, I'm having my period for the first time. James McAvoy or Patty, figures out that, okay, I think Agnes was in the basement and knows something's up. And there is this 20-minute sequence that is just an agonizing sequence from when the family decides to leave and actually gets in the car to go. I thought this was my favorite part of the movie. I thought this was the best.
You know why I think it was your favorite part? Because it's so much like the original.
It is.
You were just like, no, don't do that.
Stop talking.
Just leave.
So they go to get in the car. Luis and Ben Dalton, the family, get in the car to leave. And the tire's flat in the car. Patty kind of pokes Luis with a jab that she cheated on her husband.
Yep.
That leads to this kind of character arc where she admits that she cheated because she wasn't happy, and it's kind of like a weird way to make up for something that you did.
Yeah, it was really smart of her to kind of throw that out there because she knew it would just kind of take them off guard just enough to get her family out.
Yep.
So it was really neat how they did that.
And then once again, Hoppy, for some weird reason, is on a roof under the garage awning. And there's this very tense scene where clearly Patty has put this bunny on the roof because he knew it would keep them from leaving. And he gets Ben to climb this ladder to go get the bunny. And it's like
3 minutes long.
I know, and it's so agonizing because you're like, he's gonna pull the ladder out from him, he's gonna kill him. And having watched the original, the whole time you're waiting for it to fall back in line with what happens in the original movie. You know, he gets Hoppy down, and it all kind of culminates in a more typical home invasion type escape movie where Patty and Ciara
Almost Home Alone-esque.
It is kind of Home Alone.
Yeah.
You have, you know, they're weaponizing with whatever they can find, box cutters and hammers and acidic cleaning supplies.
Yes. A Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. And you kind of get this sequence that's definitely watchable and a lot of fun. And it is far more satisfying than the original movie because it's not just dread-soaked. What do you think about the turn when they kind of make their final stand in the house?
In the house? I enjoyed it. It is exactly what you wanted from the original. So there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I'm finally get to see it. But I think the main reason why I enjoyed it so much was because of Patty, James McAvoy's character. If it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would have enjoyed that scene as much. But I also like the fact that, what's her name, Louise, the wife, I love how in charge she was the whole time as well, and how she takes over
because
everything.
her husband kind of sticks with the original arc.
Yes.
He's just such a little bitch the entire movie, through and through.
He is, and I just love how she's the glue that's holding everything together the whole time.
Yep.
And they really like show that throughout the whole movie, like she is the key. And then in the house, it's like, yes, she is why you're still here. So her taking control of everything to really show off how it all pans out was really cool. And, you know, it's just, it's so satisfying to see these people get what they deserve as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't get that in the original.
No, you don't at all.
So coming into this one.
Well, somebody gets what they deserve.
Yeah, I
in the
mean, you're right. Somebody does get it. But in this one, you're like, okay, so we're going to get to see what could have happened if they stood up for themselves.
Exactly. It's that kind of wish fulfillment. And because the movie is so exactly like the original until the third act, you really do just like look at the director and it's like, you knew what the first one was about.
Yes.
And you're trying to fix it.
Yep.
And the question is, do you think he fixed the first movie?
No, not at all. I don't think it is a matter of fixing it as much as it is, do I think that he made it more watchable? I will say right now, I don't think that the original one needs to be fixed. Even after all the stuff that I said about it, I still respect that film for how it was and the nuts that it had to be that way. I think that he just saw something and was like, I think I can make this more comfortable for American audiences. That's what I think happened with it. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's completely fine.
It's especially weird coming from the guy who made Eden Lake, which is such a... Eden Lake and the original Speak No Evil are like hand in hand through the meadow, dude.
Pretty close.
Those are
pretty close.
If you have not seen Eden Lake, it is of dire circumstance and brutal and sad and terrible. So very interesting that he would take on a project that fixed such a dreadful movie.
It actually shocked me whenever I realized that he was the one who directed it, that this movie turned out the way it did.
Yeah, and when I say fix, I don't want you to think that I think that he wanted to fix. I just mean like...
I think you're on the right
It's like a wish fulfillment.
No, you're nailing it by saying fixing, because he is fixing it for American audiences, because let's be real, there's not many movies out there like Speak No Evil in like American audience.
And
if there is, they don't do well.
Yeah, that is true. Usually it's like Australian horror that's like really cruel and terrible.
Korean.
Yeah, Korean is just like really mean.
They have a lot of really mean movies.
But while I was watching this, I was just having a great time. And my favorite aspect about the fixing, so to speak, is Ant gets a really cool redemption arc.
Yep, he sure does.
And he also gets his yell of freedom.
Yep.
That it happens in the first movie, but between Ben and Patty, they do this scream of like anxiety relief, and Ant gets that amazing moment when he screams. It's like, oh man, he got his yell too.
It is very much an Ant movie.
Yeah,
like his character is he's the most important character of the movie. If you really think about
and
it.
I think it was nice to like if anything, I think that's a really nice flesh out to get like a tool in the original movie to a character in this.
Let's be honest. We were both just happy that we didn't see another kid face down in a pool.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be real. It was so nice to be at the end of it and be like, oh, no dead kids.
Again, you can go check out our spoiler cast on the original Speak No Evil. We recommend you go see this. What would you give this out of 5, Grayson?
Oof. I think I'll give this a 4.
4.
I just the whole time we were watching it, I was never bored. I had a blast. I was laughing. I was nervous, and I just had a great time.
Yeah, I think the best part is you get all the black comedy tension of the original without feeling like absolute dog crap when the credits roll.
Yeah, there was so many good moments in the movie that, like, I might go watch it again. Like, I might just go check it out again.
I'll watch it with Chelsea.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I want you to also go check out my top 10 favorite horror films of all time right here over Grayson's face
Just right over here.
on his mug, because why not?
Might as well.
This is Carnage Candy. Make sure and go to our store down in the links as well, down in the description, and get you some sweet Carnage Candy merch. We'll be wearing it in the next video.
Sure will.
Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Goodbye.